Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you all. This is your host, Amina Ahmed, and you're watching Muslim Network TV. Welcome back to another episode of NextGen on this week's theme of young people who are creating platforms to speak about the issues that are prevalent in their own communities, whether that be the Muslim community, the Asian community, the brown community, the immigrant community, issues that they had to face their whole life, and they're building these platforms to speak on these issues. We're there on Galaxy 19 satellite, MuslimNetwork.tv, Amazon Fire TV, Roku, and soon on Apple TV as well. Now, today we have with us two young Muslim Asian women who are using their platform, who are using their talents and skills and passions to create platforms to speak on issues that make others in their community feel heard and feel seen. We have with us Anisa and Nafisa Mahmood, the founder of Lokia, the podcast. They're an advocate for women's rights, for human rights, and they speak about these issues that are prevalent in our community. So thank you so much, Nafisa and Anisa, for being with us today.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much, Amina, for having us.
Assalamu alaikum. We're very honored to be on here today. Thank you very much for having us.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being with us. You know, your podcast is so cool. For those of you who don't know, Log Kya Kahenge means and translates into what will people say? And it's a statement that many Asians, that I think it's safe to say most Asians have heard in their life, especially women, right? What will people say? And the emphasis that's put on us, you know, from our own communities. So tell us more about Log Kya Kahenge.
So Lokia Genge is a podcast series which me and Anisa set up. And in our series, we hope to tackle issues such as colorism, marriage, career choices, and topics within our community which aren't mainly spoken about. And we felt it was our duty in a way to kind of speak up about these issues and to reach out to our audience and just reassure them and let them know, like, whatever issues they're going through, we are also going through, and hopefully we can tackle them together.
We aim to create we aim to create this platform that shows that, yeah, you might be going through it, we're going through it, and it's a whole community issue overall. So we want to tackle that. We want to get rid of this log kya kahenge and just get rid of it overall, because people should not have to sacrifice their dreams in order to impress the Asian community.
Yeah, we definitely have created a standard in our community where even with career choices, like you spoke about it, if it's not a doctor or an engineer, it's not, it's not okay. So the fact that you're addressing these issues is so important. But tell me more about, what inspired that journey to start Lokia Genge?
Well, personally, I think as a brown girl myself, I feel quite in a way that I'm not seen as equal as to a boy, I guess. Like, for me, I think a brown girl goes through quite a lot. Like, guys do as well, but girls do quite a lot. And I feel what inspired us to actually talk about issues such as this is because we actually want to reach out to people and we actually want to help and tackle these problems. Like, I truly believe we are the generation to change things.
Exactly. Like, I agree with what my sister's saying. Honestly, from our hearts, from our minds, we've always been about wanting to change things in the Asian community, wanting to always have a better future for our children who are obviously going to go through the things we went through, but we want to make life easier for them. We want them to stand up, have their voice, use that passion inside them to fuel their desires, their dreams, and not having to think, oh, there's a community behind me I have to impress.
Yeah. So what topics has that led you to discuss on your podcast already, right? What are some of the issues that you've been discussing there?
So we've talked about colorism. So we talked about fair is lovely, dark is lovely also. We talked about marrying outside of race and marrying outside of caste also. And we also did speak about, recently we spoke about corona as well and about mental health and dealing with coronavirus as a global thing going on right now.
We also talked about the caste system, which is very common with your culture, depending on what culture you are. But the caste system plays a huge part when it comes to marrying. And it's really sad to know that this is still relevant in society today, because we've seen it. We've heard people who are not marrying other people because of different castes, but they're still Muslim at the end of the day.
And how do you pick these topics, right? There's so much to talk about when it comes to issues in the Asian community, right? There are a lot of them, let's be honest. So where do you kind of pick these issues from? Like, how do you know which one to talk about?
So we kind of brainstormed like a lot of ideas, and I have a notebook which I brainstormed loads inside of there, and from there we've kind of just like kind of sorted them in a way which are like more serious topics to talk about and which are more quite like less serious, and then from there we just kind of like figure it out in a way, I guess.
We also took some suggestions from our like followers who we have, and they're like, you should talk about maybe marriage, you should talk about the idea of like friendships and stuff, and about how like Asians and they don't tend to interact with non-Asians and stuff like that included. But we also asked our parents, because we know them speaking from the older generation, they will have topics they will realize that are an issue which we haven't seen, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and who's your target audience then? Is it like younger people or just the Asian community as a whole?
Asian community as a whole, yeah, honestly.
Yeah. And, what is the feedback that you've been receiving from younger people, especially because I know those are the people that tune in more into your podcast. So what is the feedback that you've got?
Like, we've received a lot of global support. Like, I was not expecting this at all, for us to even reach anybody from outside the UK, but we've had messages coming in saying that we love your podcast. Oh my God, we relate so much to what you're saying. We hope you continue. Like, it's just, we can't believe there's somebody else out there who relates to the topics as well.
Honestly, we didn't expect it, like the feedback we got. We just released it and we thought, oh, a couple of people will listen to it. It'll be okay. Like, as long as we impact one person, we don't mind. But we didn't realize we'll be getting like floods of DMs saying, thank you so much for talking about this. This means so much to me. You've inspired me to do this, inspired me to do that. Oh, it's good we've seen girls who are using their lockdown time like very wisely to speak about issues in the Asian community.
Yeah. Oh, you started this after lockdown, so it's recent, pretty recent, right?
Yeah.
1st of July.
In the UK, we're still in lockdown at this moment, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know. I think that you guys are doing a better job than us here in America dealing with the lockdown. But you talk about mental health as well. Can you tell us more about how people, especially in the Asian community, are being affected by mental health and how you're using Lokia to speak on that issue?
So I think in the Asian community, mental health is mainly viewed as something which doesn't exist. And for the generation, we are aware of how serious it is and how it's a very growing problem which is happening in our society day and age. And I just hope with our podcast, we are able to speak more about mental health and men's mental health, especially because as a society in general, I think that is hugely ignored. And I hope we can just like reach out in a way and I guess speak to our listeners, and hope our listeners, and if there are any of the older generation who also listen to our podcast, they're a bit more educated on it, and I guess it broadens their mind a bit and their thinking.
I think with mental health, we need to encourage more in the Asian community for people to become treated, for people to seek professional help. Because at the moment with the Asian community, if you have a mental health issue, you're viewed as insane. You're like viewed as not normal, if that makes sense. And we wanted to use our platform to talk about how like it's okay to have a mental health issue. It's okay not to be okay sometimes. And honestly, you should seek help. You should treat it like you would treat a physical injury. You should go and get help for it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And in the Asian community, sometimes they'll just ask you to like pray it away, right? Or it's a spiritual problem too. So is that something that you guys spoke on? Did you bring religion into this issue as well?
We do bring religion.
I think religion is a huge link to this issue because people believe having like a bad iman, like low iman, not praying enough, not reading Quran enough is why the person is depressed. Whereas someone could actually read all 5 namaz, like prayers, and they could still be depressed or still have mental health issues.
Exactly. And I think that the community, they love to mix culture and religion together. So that's why we want to like kind of separate that with our followers. Like culture and religion are completely different things.
They're two things which should not be mixed together at all.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, they're definitely separate. And we see that especially in the brown community where religion is kind of used to justify some of these very ignorant beliefs that are held. But, what is the support of your family look like? That's something that I was always wondering, because you are speaking on issues that are kind of taboo to speak on. So how's your family reacted to all of this?
Well, my dad actually really loved the idea, and so did my parents. My dad was very supportive since the start, and so was my mom. Like, my dad was like, "Oh, what will you talk about? This is the name you should." Like, I remember when we were choosing names, my dad was like, "Go with this name. Go with this name. This name's really nice."
And honestly, we're really privileged as Asian girls to have fathers that are quite supportive of our dreams, of what we want to do in life, because we have friends who are not able to do what they want to do in life because they listen to what their parents say, etc. But we've always been grateful to have a family that supports our goals, supports our dreams, and just know that they even know that one day we're going to change the world and that we're going to be the future. So they like, you do what you have to do to make life better.
Yeah, they're very understanding.
I know, it's amazing to have that.
Like, yeah. That's so sweet and beautiful to hear that your family is supportive of you. I think we need to see more of that, right, in the Asian community, more people who are pushing out girls. And even with like this talk show, I had a lot of people that were questioning me, but then having your family there to back you up is always the most powerful thing. And it's very nice. So I'm so glad to hear that. But do you think that the Muslim community in general provides enough platforms for young people to speak on these issues? You created a platform yourself, but the community in general, are they doing that?
I don't think so. I think not many members of our community are being encouraged to go into such type of fields and do such type of things. Like, it's usually just the traditional fields, as you know. But I feel we need to encourage more people to go into these fields and to talk about these issues, because these are issues which shouldn't be brushed away. They should be spoken about.
I feel like a lot of the Muslim community are not creating platforms, and it's pretty sad to see, especially like influencers, let's just say, they have this privilege, they have this power to influence so many people, but they will not talk about these topics because they know they'll receive backlash, or people might unfollow because they're talking about this. But what they need to realize is that they need to use their voice for positivity. Pretty sad.
For sure. I think we hear a lot of complaining from our own community that we don't have enough representation, that we don't have people who are Muslim that are, depicting Muslims. But the reality is we don't even encourage our children to go into these fields. So how will we start? Yeah. So I totally get where you're coming from in terms of the Muslim community needs to start off with creating platforms, the brown community as well. And we'll be speaking more about what we can do to create these platforms right after our short break. We're there on Galaxy 19 satellite, MuslimNetwork.tv, Amazon Fire TV, Roku, and soon on Apple TV as well. We'll be right back.
Hi.
Welcome back to NextGen. I'm here with Anisa and Nafisa Mahmood, the founder of the podcast Lokia Kahenge. Now, what do you guys see for the future of Lokia Kahenge? What do you hope is the future of this podcast?
Well, I just hope we reach out to more listeners, and really, honestly, I'd love us to go quite very famous, hopefully, inshallah. And I hope we reach out to more people, and maybe even I don't know, maybe have more clubs with people, maybe talk to more people, go to
100%, yeah.
events.
I feel like the future is very unpredictable for us at this moment because we're young and we don't know what opportunities we're going to take. And of course, we want to be able to change the world. We want our voices to be heard from everywhere. And we'd love it if we could go on more like radio shows, more talk shows.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, just like NextGen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully you guys get on more platforms like NextGen so you can speak about, your podcast, speak about Lokia Kahenge. But after school starts, you're still in lockdown, right? Are you going to continue this podcast?
Yeah. Hopefully,
100%, yeah.
I really want to continue this podcast, honestly. Even alongside, we'll be going to university in September, hopefully. And I hope to continue it as a side of our studies as well.
Yeah, inshallah, both of those things you'll be able to do. But what are the long-term kind of impacts that you want Lokia Kahenge to have on the Asian community, to have on the Muslim community?
I hope it reaches more, it goes out more to our older generation, and I hope they can listen to it, or even the younger generation can help educate the older generation. I really hope the younger generation can bring change into this, and I just really want our mentality around certain topics in our society to change.
100%, yeah, I agree. I feel like our impacts we're aiming for is we just want more representation. We want more representation, not just for like light skins or like brown people. We want representation for the Muslim community overall as well. And we want more representation for the dark is beautiful, not fair is lovely. We want representation for everybody.
I feel like whenever we've had Muslim representation, we've not had the right representation. Like we'll demand for Muslim representation, but we won't get the right one, which actually represents Muslims.
Yeah, and I think that's even worse, right? It's like I'd rather have no representation. I think
that's exactly my point.
Right. We saw like hijabi representation, but it was completely like flawed, and it was put out for the Western audience, and a lot of hijabis were like, I loved it when we didn't have any. So for sure, I get that. I get where you're coming from. We need to have accurate Muslim representation in the media. But what do you hope that the Muslim community, the brown community, does to encourage these type of conversations, to encourage young Muslims to go out and create these platforms and make some actual change?
I hope we put aside our traditional thinking, our mentality of Lokia Kahenge, what will people say. I hope we're able to inspire our girls and boys, but mainly our girls who are quite more into like pushed aside, I guess. In a way, I feel like brown girls are quite isolated in our society. We're not as encouraged as boys to go out and get careers. And I hope we can, as a society, we can encourage this type of thinking to be more aspirational, motivational, enthusiastic about our dreams and our ambitions. And I hope we can get more people out there to preach about these topics, to speak up if they see injustice.
Exactly, yeah. I feel like what we should do is we should start educating more. So we start with obviously the parents, the people that raise your children. If your parents are not educated on these topics, how are you going to raise your kids correctly? And this is what we try to aim for. We want to encourage the people that listen to our podcast, obviously, to kind of stand up to their parents and say, listen, like, this isn't right what you say. You shouldn't be saying that. Educate your parents. Don't come across as rude or anything. Just politely educate them.
I think sometimes a lot of their mindset is ingrained in them from a very young age. A lot of people in the brown community. So for sure, the way that we do it is important as well. But, you speak about women's issues, cultural issues, colorism, that dark is also lovely. But are these issues that you've had to face in your own life? Because you do seem very passionate about them.
Yeah, so of course, with our podcast, we do talk about women's issues, as you stated, and obviously, as a brown girl ourselves, we have gone through some of these issues, stuff with like double standards, colorism. With colorism, we have not really faced
severe.
Colorism.
We have had when we go to like Pakistan, for example, let's say our homeland, we have had people say, "Oh, look at their like beautiful white hands," but it's like, if my hands were darker skin, what would you say then? Would you not point them out then? If you understand what I mean. It's like Pakistan is completely different, let's just say. If you look around at the representation, all you will see is fair-skinned women modeling their clothes there, modeling their makeup there.
Exactly. even like salons and stuff like that, they more embrace the use of like lighter color foundations rather than having actual matched foundations.
Yeah, we went through that. Do you remember?
Yeah.
That must have been terrible, right? They make you look like an absolute ghost. I know exactly what you're.
And it was like, I've got my own foundation with my own skin tone that matches me perfectly fine. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And it's so normalized there, right? Even like you see brides and all of that. And people will tell you that, wow, like, mashallah, you're so fair. And it's like,
Yeah, exactly.
why wouldn't you say that to a dark-skinned person as well? So racism and colorism is something that's very prevalent in our communities. And I feel like nowadays people are starting to speak up a lot about it compared to our parents' generation, where it was a lot of like normalcy around colorism. But, on your podcast, you guys speak about human rights issues and how you're passionate about that. Have you, promoted charities or kind of spoke on relief work that's being done in our communities?
We've not spoken out yet, but hopefully soon we hope to speak out more about Yemen. As you see the crisis going on there, we hope to speak out more, raise more awareness about these issues going on around the world, because I feel we have a platform, we have a voice, and we should use that for the right stuff. I mean, you see so many celebrities and so many actresses, actors, they have so much huge followings, but they don't really speak out about these issues. I mean, even if they shared just a simple Save Yemen link, charity link, how much they could raise if they sold their clothes and they donated some proceeds to this, etc. Do you understand what I mean? It's just
it's very sad to know that we look up to these people that are deemed as role models, but yet they don't help to change the world like we'd like to see the world being changed. And of course, with you saying about how us talking about charities and stuff with the Muslim community, we would definitely look at that. And of course, our main priority on our podcast is talking about issues in the Asian community. So we would definitely promote the idea of different charities, of course, but with the Asian community itself, I feel like we're not represented as people who do give to charity and stuff, especially by the Western community. They don't view us as people who give to charity at all.
Yeah, that's kind of ironic because I think that the Asian community is one of the most generous communities. You could literally just walk into an Asian household and my mom won't let you go until you eat something. So we definitely are.
Our hospitality is amazing as Asians.
Yeah, for sure. We're up there. We're elite when it comes to hospitality. Sometimes a little bit overboard, but I think that's okay, right? But what is your advice to other young Asian women, Muslim women, maybe just, people in the Asian community who want to do something similar to what you guys are doing as well?
Just go for it. Honestly, just put your mind to it. Anything you put your mind to, you can actually achieve. With hard work, effort, you can do it. Literally, just go for it.
Don't ever feel like your gender, you being brown, you being Asian, whatever culture you are, don't ever feel like that is going to stop you from achieving something great. Because the truth is, other people have done it in their life, so why can't you?
Yeah. I think that's very powerful that, just go for it. You don't hesitate, and you can make some real change. But before we end here, I want to ask, have you guys experienced any hardships in this journey, right? Have you experienced any backlash? Because I know you've received a lot of support. What about kind of the opposite end?
No, not really. We haven't really received
I don't think so.
backlash.
At the moment, we haven't. But I feel like we will have a couple of like male members that will say to us like, listen, you shouldn't be doing this. Maybe reconsider what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because we know that a lot of people are going to see your face. A lot of people are going to know you. And that's a big problem with the Asian community. It's frowned upon when a girl becomes viral, when an Asian girl is speaking out about topics that shouldn't be spoken about. But in reality, we should encourage this. The son should be proud and stuff. Do you understand what I mean? People should be proud of their family members.
Yeah, I feel Anissa does have a point with that. I feel as we get more with more followers, etc. and stuff, maybe we will hear comments such as like, okay, your girls, that's enough now. Okay, you've done enough there.
Yeah.
You can like slow down a bit. Like, I don't know what it is, but within our community, we don't really like to boast much about our girls' achievements. But compared to our boys' achievement, we talk about they're a doctor, they've gone on to do this, etc. But if a girl did something like that, they'd be like, okay, she's a doctor now. I think it's time to get her married. Like, it's time for her to get married. I don't need to go on and study.
It's not the same. It's not the same for both of us. And it's sad that it's not the same because we should be valued as well,
Yeah, we really should, and I'm glad that you haven't faced any of that yet, and I really pray and hope that you won't. But I know that if you do, you'll prepared for that. You guys are strong, empowering, passionate women. Thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you to our audience for tuning in and listening to these two incredible young women, young Muslim women who are making some changes, who are building a beautiful platform. Lokia Kenge. Thank you all so much for watching, and tomorrow we will be speaking on the Kashmir crisis. So tune in again tomorrow.